An apparent compromise in the works would have the military hold drug suspects until civilian authorities could arrest them.
Federal officials say marijuana growers have set up shop in most of the nation's national parks. And as CNN's Patricia Ox reports, the growers are growing more violent in their effort to protect their crops.
Nearly every one of the 150 national forests in the United States have marijuana illegally growing on them.
Last year, the Forest Service declared 1 million acres of national forests off limits to the public because of the dangers associated with marijuana production. The Forest Service received 400 reports of assaults or threats of bodily harm to visitors and employees.
As marijuana production increases, so has violence. At a hearing on Capitol Hill, law enforcement officers displayed examples of weapons used by marijuana growers to ward off the unwelcome visitor. Fence staples meant to flatten tires, nail-board devices, rat traps that fire shotgun shells, grenades, strings of fish hooks tied to saplings pulled back and triggered by tripwires, Uzi machine guns. Confiscation is not limited to marijuana. One drug-related case was marked by severe brutality.
One individual had his head and hands cut off and removed and have never been located.
Forestry officials are disturbed by the environmental costs. Rodenticides empty strychnine into streams, for example, and high nitrogen fertilizers and other chemicals are causing plant and animal damage. So far, law enforcement has centered on eradication of crops and laboratories. The Forest Service, not expecting to have to fight drugs, has neither the resources nor the legal jurisdiction to pursue illegal growers when they flee parkland. The Senate Agriculture Committee wants to draft legislation to strengthen the National Forest Service's ability to conduct surveillance, pursue growers, and increase convictions. But with the growing sophistication, that task gets more difficult every day. Patricia Ox, CNN, Washington.
Just as Los Angeles police thought they were gaining ground in the war against gangs, the street violence claimed another life. CNN's Taylor Henry reports.
Los Angeles Police Chief Daryl Gates triumphantly announced the arrest of 2 suspected gang members, including one accused of murdering a city employee during a robbery May 2nd, and another for last Sunday's shooting of an 11-year-old boy as he sat at home watching television.
I'm down, my son ain't in that shop.
Very unfortunately, this city is becoming the murder capital of the world for gang killings.
But even as Gates was announcing the arrests, one man was killed and another wounded when shooting broke out between members of the same gang at a wake for a fellow gang member.
It's another in a rash of gang-related shootings that we've had recently.
The war will continue. We are not going to stop it.
How come you seriously don't want to come out to your gang no more?
I ain't for a gang.
It's not fun to be a gangster no more?
Dozens of Hispanics suspected of being gang members were rounded up Wednesday night in the latest of several recent police sweeps of crime-ridden inner-city neighborhoods. But as police have found, for gang members arrested in sweeps like this one, being in a gang doesn't necessarily end with being taken off the streets. Even in jail, they wear gang colors, including blue shoestrings, worn by members of the gang known as Crips, colors that distinguish one gang from another, as dramatized in the current movie, Colors.
King of my jungle, just a gangster stalking.
Meanwhile, public support for the 2-month-old police crackdown on gangs appears to be having the effect of protecting the public from some gang members. Bail bondsman Celeste King says his gang-related business is off this year.
For the first time, the families are not running in here, breaking the door down to get the gang members out.
And police hope that's a sign they're winning the war on gangs despite the recent surge of violence. Taylor Henry, CNN, Los Angeles.
5 gang members are scheduled to be arraigned in Los Angeles this evening in the murders of 2 young women. The 5 are charged with shooting an 18-year-old college co-ed and her 12-year-old neighbor in what police say was a case of mistaken identity. The gang members were searching for the girlfriend of a drug dealer who had sold them phony drugs. The 2 victims happened to be driving through the neighborhood at the time, and police say the gang members opened fire on their car.
Some gang members convicted of murders are in prison where they have time to look.
He is refusing to say whether U.S. officials are, as NBC reported last night, offering to drop the drug running charges against Noriega in exchange for his promise to step down. Meanwhile, congressional critics are charging the White House with making a mockery of American justice. Marlon Jennings reports.
Reports that the U.S. is ready to drop drug charges against Panamanian General Manuel Noriega drew an angry